Thank you, Laura. Great. Welcome back. Thanks for coming back. And yeah, all the comments I'm enjoying, intermission jokes and everything. Thank you so much. And yeah, so yeah, I think it's really clear that you are finding that the feedback is actually relevant. Yeah, and it became more specific. However, there were some of you who weren't actually not really finding, some descriptions very helpful. Yeah. Okay, so I think we are probably getting several different versions of the feedback, but I'm going to just show you what I was getting yesterday. So yeah, with the suggestions for reading for writing, so improving the score from 2 to 3. So incorporate more specific details from source materials, and very specifically use additional points from text B, such as reading TV as a privilege, etc., etc. Provide balanced coverage. Benefits section is underdeveloped, so look for benefits, which is also very useful and relevant. Adapt content more effectively, so ensure that every point included in the report is directly relevant to the task. Avoid vague phrasing, like some people think it's too much. Yeah. And then task fulfillment. This is what I got. Communicative aim. Yeah, expanded discussion on benefits. It was already mentioned, but for instance, discuss the harmful effects of excessive screen time versus educational benefits in detail. That's useful. And avoid casual expressions like so and so. And then I was not too sure about this feedback. So fulfill John requirements. So in the light pink color, add a formal introduction and conclusion. So from looking at the whole document of the example responses and example grades given to these responses, published by the ISE, then I know that the top marked scripts don't necessarily have to have conclusion. And obviously it's very short for 150 to 180 words. So of course ChatGPT says conclusions because it's a report, and ideally yes, but whether this is as important as the other points, that's up to discussion, and that's where teachers come in. What actually needs to be prioritized. Okay, let's go to another slide. Yeah, so organization and structure, that's use of linking words, that's very useful, and some developing ideas, for instance, whatever. Enhancing structure. Now this is also what I kind of questioned, how relevant it is, or like realistic, or how important this is. So organized by themes like mental health, physical health, and social development. Of course, if the word count allows, yes, but even the top marked responses that I'm not showing right now, but you can check that on the website, does not really have detailed sections about it, because the word counts doesn't allow that. It's just kind of tends to be the list. It has effects on effects on the mental health, physical health, etc. So this may not be that much on the point. And the last pink highlight, use the heading and subheadings that are uniform in style. And yeah, how important this is. I mean, compared to the idea expansion and inclusion of the, some more beneficial points from text A and B, this doesn't seem to be very useful. Now, language control, that's, yeah, basically pretty much very useful, grammar errors, punctuation errors, seek feedback on drafts. I mean, ChatGPT is basically doing that. So it's really interesting that it's suggesting it again. The pink highlight was the expand vocabulary, the second point. Expand vocabulary, use more precise and varied words, replace great with beneficial or advantageous, etc., etc. So again, when I look up the fully marked one, it doesn't necessarily happen. So, obviously ChatGPT thinks that, seems to think that, it has a lot of ideals, and it would be nice to have, but whether that's going to be relevant, achievable, that is something that teachers need to come in, because ChatGPT doesn't have that context. Yep. So yeah, summary so far is that ChatGPT can provide useful feedback to students' written work, but some parts of it may not be as relevant or as important as others, yeah? And therefore teachers, cannot be replaced. I mean, this is quite scary, isn't it? Because really fast, really, speedy production of the feedback, and that what we used to do for number of hours is done like within minutes, and that's quite scary. But at the same time, this can do it, and what it cannot replace is that knowing their students and selecting the relevant feedback to work on, and advice, more like giving tailored advice. So yeah, what I listed here is the teachers cannot be replaced by this, because teachers know their students better. They know the backgrounds, strengths and weaknesses in other aspects of the English proficiency. They can evaluate progress over a period of time, whereas ChatGPT may be just, like very cross-sectional at one time. And teachers know the task requirements and expectations better, so that is very useful in selecting feedback to give, and also give tailored feedback, so advice accordingly, so that the learners become more autonomous. Yeah, that's the ultimate goal of what we are teaching for. Now, yeah, I see that, yeah, I think Jill has put, might be useful to include something around students' level in the prompt. Yes, so yeah, it will be quite useful. So, this student is a, student who's studying up, whatever. Yeah, that may be useful as well. It really depends on, yeah, what you want to use it for. But yeah, the more context generally, the more useful and tailored it becomes. Now, I wanted to ask, so the question is, okay, how would you actually use ChatGPT, in your grading and assessment work? And the first question is that, does your institution allow or encourage use of ChatGPT? I mean, obviously not for the like final assignments, but yeah, during the course of learning, is there any clear policies around the use of it for students, for teachers, or are you not sure? This is a genuine question. You can put in the chat, that would be helpful. It allows up to a point, but not encourage. Yeah, not sure. Doesn't recommend. Okay, Copilot instead, yeah. Policies are quite weak. Yeah. Encouraged, no. Yeah. Detailed guidelines for students, but not yet for teachers. Yeah. Interesting. Personally, you require students to use AI. Yeah, it allows it. We're not allowed to upload students' work in it. Yeah. Depends on the category of assessment. Okay, yeah, assignment have a red, amber, green level of how much AI is allowed. Yeah, no clear policy. Yeah, discouraged. Not allowed for assessments. Yeah. Higher education allows it. Yeah. Many do not know how to use it. Yeah. Yeah, that's really helpful, because I can see the varied responses. Some institutions have clear guidelines, maybe for students, but maybe not teachers. It's discouraged, absolute no, or do you have, to some extent, allow the students to use whatever. So yeah, obviously, the ethics using AI, ethics in the use of AI is very important, and whether you are allowed to, even if it's anonymous, upload the students' written work to ChatGPT. It really is. It really is controversial, isn't it? So whose text, is it going to be, and then also is the text feeding to the larger language models that is in turn going to be used by someone else, etc. So yeah, it's it's a still modeled field actually. And so if you obviously not like in the assessment, but if you are training students to do drafting and revising, etc., that's probably more realistic place to actually try to introduce this. So if you're allowed to upload anonymized students' writing to the AI, I mean, not necessarily ChatGPT, but Copilot, etc., feed it and generate draft feedback. And if you want to see how it aligns with your judgment, and also sort of save time in generating written comments, which actually is a very valid point, because as an English learner myself, I sometimes struggle to write positive, constructive feedback, constructive and concise feedback. And I could ask ChatGPT, okay, I have this draft of feedback, can you kind of make it concise or something like that? Yeah, and that also saves the time. It might be a little bit, but when it comes to like 20, 30, it definitely saves time. So yeah, that could be useful. I mean, that's one part of using it to save your time. And so with the generated feedback, you could select and modify most relevant feedback if you are the final giver of the feedback. Or if you're wondering about, okay, where does this error come from? Like, is that something, is that a language? Is that by a writer whose first language is, not what you know, and not the language that you know, and therefore you wondered, is this possibly like the, influence from their first language? Then you can actually ask that kind of thing, and also tell ChatGPT to cite the credible sources, yeah, and then you can judge the information. Okay, maybe this is actually coming from their mother tongue influence, etc., and then you can start to address that, rather than spending hours and hours, trying to identify, with just Google search. Or you can allow students to access ChatGPT in improving their drafts. I mean, this can be done at different times during class time, at home, but then at home, teachers would be worried about, okay, what if the whole thing is generated by ChatGPT? So the control, how to use it, and the sort of step by step thinking is required if you are going to encourage this for students. But at the same time, I think as some of you have already mentioned, that it's important that we embrace it, because it's going that way. It's going that way, and many people are starting to use it. Sorry, did anyone? I think I heard someone, but that was last night, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I think that was that was not a comment to me. Anyway, so yeah, we are still sort of in the muddy field, but it's important that we understand it and try to use it so that it's going to be in the benefit of the students. Now I'm very mindful of the time. Okay, so my final points to note. So a lot of institutions have the AI use detector like Turnitin, etc. And me and some colleagues at the University of Bedfordshire has done a systematic review of relevant literature in terms of the machine learning in a computer science field, as to, okay, how accurately can we actually detect the use of machine generated text and human written text? And the answer is actually not very precise, not very high. So yeah, it's very difficult to distinguish actually, and even with detectors like Turnitin and different language models. And literature suggests that, had suggested that in machine written text tend to be more formal or consistent, error-free, lacking in redundancy, so, et cetera. But because it's developing so fast that it may be difficult, it may become a lot more difficult, than what it is now, and it is a moving target. So yeah, my final point basically is to, we better embrace the ChatGPT, the use of AI really in the daily on the daily basis, and for learning and for teaching. And yeah, I think this is where we are at, that reconceptualizing of what academic writing is really vital and crucial. And it's not going to happen overnight, but it will change, because a lot of higher educations like academic writing construct focused on being able to search, read, summarize, all the important studies and important information, etc. But all of that can be done quite quickly by ChatGPT, AI. And now what is uniquely human? What is the uniquely human ability that we want to actually nurture at the higher education level? Yeah, we need to I guess strive to think about it. Yeah, it's going to be a muddy path, but yeah, that's where we are at, and I think many of you would agree with that. So yeah, I think we have about 13-14 minutes left for any questions or discussions. I have seen some comments in the chat asking about has anyone... This is an interesting... Yeah, sorry?
No, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, there's I think from Carolyn, has anyone tried to use ChatGPT for marking degree assignments rather than EAP work? Students certainly use it for this purpose. Anyone can share their experience at all? Degree assignments meaning like credit-bearing modules, I think, rather than EAP. I guess people can maybe comment on that. Thank you. Diana, I tell them that mistakes are a way to learn, rather than penalize them. Points for task completion, regardless of their first draft. Yeah, it is. It's very important to like keep the positives, and then give credits to that. I see some hands actually. Yep. Please raise your hands and unmute yourself, and comment. Sorry, who was that? I missed two. Let me just unshare then.
I'm just maybe at this point, if we can come up on videos, that would be really nice, because Chishiro has been talking to a void for the last hour and 15 minutes. It would be great if people can put the videos on, if you can. And then if you have a question, which is a longer question, would be nice if you could just come on mic, if you don't mind. I mean, one of the questions that I saw earlier in the chat was about whether we could use our generative AI tools to do the same job, and would the job be done better or worse? So I don't know whether you have any, whether you've done any research on that.
I haven't done any research that directly answers that, but usually you can actually create like using API and use like a really tailored AI grading system, but it still needs human eye, because that's what the large scale English language testing organizations need to have, that whatever the AI does, there would be cases where human eyes really need to be put in order to supervise the performance. And also it's nothing that's irrelevant or, like inappropriate are happening. So yeah, I mean, yes, you can, but yeah, teacher involvement is necessary still.
So going back to the comment about whether we can use AI, oh, sorry, Sarah, just in a second, whether we can use AI to mark actually degree assignments. It might be a bit of a tricky system with what we've got at the moment, because we're never certain whether the assignment would be marked in a correct way. And that's quite important for the student.
Yeah. I guess it depends on the type of assignment. I guess, the courseworks might be different, assignments can be quite different. So yeah, it will be helpful if, sorry, I can't remember who asked the question, but, to elaborate on that, and then maybe we can discuss. I see hands.
Sarah, I think, yeah, you're next.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, first of all, very interesting.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, towards the end, if I understood you correctly, you said that a possible use of ChatGPT for feedback would be asking ChatGPT to provide a first draft of feedback, and then the teacher can modify it, select the most important points. Have you tried this yourself?
To some extent, yes. To some extent, yes.
The reason why I'm asking is because I'm wondering, did that save you time? Because I'm looking into this topic right now, and I found that to be able to correct or modify AI generated feedback, I had to anyway first read the submission and then kind of still create anyway my own feedback, and in a way compare it to what the AI tool provided. And in the end, I was thinking, am I saving time, or am I actually spending more time on doing this?
Yeah, I think that's a very valid question, and I think some people would say yes, some people would say no. And in my case, because as I mentioned earlier, that I sometimes struggle with providing concise feedback sentences, that I can just ask ChatGPT, okay, I feel that this work needs this and this and this, can you sort of give me a draft feedback sentences, and then I would use it to modify, and that saved my time rather than thinking about it from zero. But yes, I guess with this kind of because what we have done today basically is what we will be doing, isn't it? So read the student script anyway first, and then to think about, okay, what would be the strengths, weaknesses, what would we want to give as a score, and then feedback, I mean, to submit it to the ChatGPT, etc. I mean, at least that's what you will be doing at the beginning, at least, if you have the system there. So yeah, whether you would save a lot of time there, not sure if it's going to be operationally done. I mean, if you have quite a lot, then that would definitely save time, probably once you have trained up your system. But yeah, if you have only 3 or 5, might not be. And if you're a good feedback, concise feedback giver, then you're probably okay without.
Yeah, I suppose we could also use it the other way around, as you said. So we create our own feedback, and then we ask ChatGPT to edit it either for conciseness or to make our feedback sound encouraging, or
yeah, that's true. Yes,
something around those lines.
Indeed.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
I think we've got Diana and then Phil.
I think you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your talk. It's very interesting.
Thank you.
And in answer to Sarah's also question, I have used AI as a way to kind of provide feedback. But what I've done is I've given in the draft kind of a students with a prompt for AI, and they've done their own self-assessment of their own draft, and then they would ask me specific questions. So I wouldn't spend time giving them feedback that they didn't actually need or they didn't actually want. So I gave them some agency in their own kind of feedback process. So rather than spending time correcting things that they might not even read, I said, okay, here is your prompt, here is your feedback. go and do it yourself and then come back with me for questions. And I found that a lot more effective than spending hours giving them feedback. So that's what I've done.
Can I just ask a follow-up question, Diana? So was this in writing? So basically in the feedback box, you wrote, okay, put this prompt into ChatGPT, and then did you find that a lot of students then came with questions?
Yes, absolutely. And what they did is I actually had a forum, an anonymous forum as well. So throughout the course, they could ask me questions as well. So there were students that don't find it, they get a bit embarrassed to ask questions, and they actually felt more comfortable asking anonymously. Whereas there were other students that would approach you in class, or they got a chance to ask specific questions once they uploaded their task. So I actually got them to upload their own self-assessment. You know, they kind of got the feedback. I got them to take screenshots of what was said to them, and then their own self-reflection on their feedback and whether they had actually understood the feedback given by AI. And then I got them to actually ask me a question. So I said, look, I'm going to answer the questions that you specifically asked me, rather than going through the whole, task myself. And that gave them some sort of responsibility, because I find that students, if you don't give them responsibility, they kind of don't look at the feedback. Some do because they're kind of, intrinsically motivated and actually want to learn, and others just want a grade. So if you actually get them to look for their own, improvement in performance, I find that a lot more effective. That's my experience anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I think that's really fascinating that, rather than you correcting language and etc., then you give responsibility to the students, and then you're sort of, your teaching maybe in the feedback has shifted towards, creating the more autonomous learners rather than to feedback directly on their written work. And yeah, that's great. Thank you. Sorry, I think Phil was next. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, thank you for the session, Chihiro. Yeah, really interesting. And yeah, something I've definitely taken away was the sort of using the paperclip to put in criteria. I'm a bit of a newbie to some of this. I found that very helpful, very interesting. And I suppose just following on from Diana's point, I also felt that sometimes, in EAP, when we're thinking about feedback, we sort of instinctively think we need to have read everything the student's done, give them feedback on everything. And I think very often that means that we only kind of look at one bit of writing, pretty summative in detail. But the idea of shorter bits of writing more frequently with sort of ChatGPT giving feedback, and students then sort of asking you, for them to kind of use the feedback to look at their own text and then come back to you to sort of suggest, I think I'm getting it here. It's telling me to do here. It's telling me there's something I need to work on, and to be able to focus on those kind of aspects in a course, I think is something that is very powerful as a way of getting students to take a bit more responsibility, to be a bit more self-regulated, and just the amount of feedback they can get, the kind of quantity that is enabled, which, if you're taking in a draft and then marking it and giving the feedback back to a student, you can probably do that once in a term or a semester. There's the option here to sort of really build feedback over a period of time, each week, perhaps potentially getting a lot of feedback and then using that feedback, bring it into class and sort of discussing it. So I think there is a lot of value to that. So I think that sort of really followed on from Diana's point. I didn't really have a question, but I just thought that is very important that we sort of think carefully about feedback now in sort of the age of ChatGPT.
Yeah. Thanks, Phil. That's an excellent point. Yeah, the quantity and the speed that it can be provided is just amazing, isn't it? Whereas, previously we would be like, okay, I need this, 3 days dedicated, after this, assignment is, this submitted and then etc. But then, you can just do it more frequently in smaller chunks. So yeah, that's a great thing to do.
We are running out of time, so we've got 1 minute left. If Amel, I think, am I saying correctly? You have a question?
Hello. First of all, I would like to thank you for this a very interesting session and the valuable insights.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm Dr. Amel Afia from Algeria. I'm specialized in English for specific purposes and I have used to teach postgraduates English or scientific English. I'm searching and I'm experimenting the use or the impact or the effectiveness of using AI grading tools in assessment, of course. But a question came to my mind is that how can AI grading tools be fair to students from different language and cultural backgrounds? I was wondering about the fairness, since I teach postgraduates coming from different language and cultural backgrounds. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's a very good question. So it touches upon this ethics issue with the use of AI. That if the data that's fed into it, is imbalanced, then it's going to just reproduce this, different, biases in the output. And yeah, so I don't have like a direct answer to that, but I think the answer would be that you're going to need to train your AI with the script. With the written work that is written by different people from different backgrounds, etc., and then tell them to be okay. So you ignore this part. You sort of don't weigh these mistakes that are coming from their L1 or whatever, so that they will get it. So that so that I think human ratings are treated as the gold standard, and if the human ratings are not biased and it can feed into the system, then yes, it can be produced as the bias-free ratings. But yes, you do need data in order to do that. So yeah, you wouldn't be able to just expect that something like ChatGPT feeding maybe my written work and your written work, and it's going to be done in the very same fair manner. Yeah,
I think this leads us to have another session about this topic.
Exactly. Yes. But it's a very valuable question. So thank you very much for asking that towards the end. Yes. This is, unfortunately, this is all the time that we've had for today. So Chishiro, thank you very much again for coming and doing the presentation. It's been great to have you on board. I never mentioned in the beginning that Laura Connolly is here as well, who was supporting us from a technical point of view in the background. So thank you very much to you as well. And I hope that you've benefited from the session. I have personally. If you have 5 minutes to give us feedback, that would be wonderful. I'm just putting a link in a chat. There are just a few questions, so it shouldn't take a long time. And watch the space. There will be more assessment roadshows coming your way next year. So thank you ever much for your participation. Again, thank you to the speaker, and have a lovely weekend and happy Christmas. And a new year as well.
That's true, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me and staying till the end. Have a great weekend and Christmas.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Chishiro. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.